Today you're going to learn how to create these beautiful trails using Blender geometry nodes. I hope you're ready for this tutorial because after this video you will know a lot of things to create interesting animations. So let's do it. Okay, let's go to geometry nodes with any profile and we're going to start using a simple point. Let's get it here. And basically what we want is to create an animation in this point. We want to make it move. And later, we are going to create copies of this point and then create like a trail. So first of all, let's create an animation. We can use the position of this point, for example, to create an animation with noise texture. We are going to select color because color works with the 3 axes. And to animate this point, we need to select 4D. And now, thanks to this, as you can see, we can animate this. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, this is moving a bit far from this point, and we don't want that. We want this point moving around this point. So let's disable this, normalize. And now, if I play with this value, you can see that it's moving around of the center of the wall. Okay, perfect. Now, to animate this constantly, we can do is to use as in time in seconds. And if we press play, we have this point moving really fast. So let's slow down this point with math and select, for example, multiply. Also, we can decrease this if you want to make it slower. For example, something like that. And now we can increase this. Maybe a bit less. Okay, now as you can see, it's moving only in this area and I want to expand this movement. So let's expand, scale the vector with vector math and let's select scale. So we can scale this vector, for example, twice. Okay, we have a point with a random movement, animation. So let's call this animation. Now what I want is to duplicate this point over time. To do this, the only thing we have to do is to use our friend's simulation nodes. And we need to add this point in the middle of this process. So every frame is going to add a copy of this point. So to do this, let's create this here. We need to use join geometry. Let's call this here. And now, if I press play, as you can see, we have a copy of the point over the time. So this is like freezing the position of the point. Okay. Now what I want is not to see all the points. I want to have like a trail of points. So like an age, lifetime. So first of all, let's create an age for this point with a store name attribute. And we need to use math. Let's call this age. And we need to use name attribute. So basically, we're going to select one here and connect this here. And let's copy this and paste it here. With this simple setup, we can create like an attribute that have the age of this particle. If you don't know how this works, I recommend you to watch my basic tutorials about simulation nodes. But basically, this is storing one value every frame. And thanks to this, it's checking again this list. So if in the first frame is storing one value, then in the second frame is reading this value, 1, and then adding another 1. So we will have 2. And this is going to be repeated constantly. So we have like an age. And we can see this if we go in the spreadsheet. Let's select spreadsheet. And if we select this point, here you can see the age. I'm going to select integer, So we have one single value, and you can select integer here. And if I press play, you can see that now we have more points, 36, and we have the age of each point. And the first one, that was the first one of the trail, so this one is the older one. And the new ones have an age of 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, we have an age, and now what we can say is, hey, can you delete the points that are older than some number, for example, 20, 10, whatever? So to do this, what we have to do is to create a lifetime. So let's delete with delete geometry, and we want to delete the points that are greater than, so let's create a condition, and here we need to connect something. We are going to use this attribute. This attribute is this list. So we're going to say, check this list, we can make a copy of that, and connect it here, and say, check this list, and delete the points that the age is greater than, for example, 10. So now, if I press play, we have this point, this trail of points, where the older point have an age of 10, because we define the threshold, the limit, the lifetime. So this number is the lifetime. After this, all of the points disappear. If I want more points, so I want a longer trail, then I'm going to increase this number, for example, 20. And now, as you can see, we have a longer trail. We can store this value as lifetime if we use another store name attribute and call this lifetime. And let's use, for example, an integer, because the age is an integer, and let's connect it here. So this is going to control this value, and we can connect this here. So we are going to start the lifetime. So this is the lifetime slash trail. How long is the trail? As you can see. Okay, so we have already this, and now the last thing we have to do is to convert this in a curve. How we do that? To do this, the only thing we have to do is to use, after all this, a simple node called points to curve. And as the name says, it's going to convert all the points in one curve. Let's check it. And that's it. As you can see, we have a random trail dancing in there, thanks to this simple setup, where we have a point with an animation, we create an attribute with an age, and we delete the older points. And with this value, we can control how long we want the trail, as you can see. And if you want more points, let's say something like 20. If you want more points, then here you can add more points. For example, 2. However, now we have a problem. Both points are in the same position. So all the copies of the points are in the same position. So we need to do something to see 2 points, 2 trails in different locations. The only thing we have to do is in vector that have the position of this noise, use index. So thanks to index, each point, let me disable this. So now we have 2 points, okay? Look, if I deactivate this, both points are in the same position. However, if I add index here, I'm saying for each point, for each index, have a different vector, a different position. So if now we press play, we have 2 trails, 2 points moving. And if you want, you can add as many points as you want. And we can scale this to give more space between them. I'm going to select something like 3. And now let's activate this. However, we have a problem. Look at this. What is happening is that this node is connecting all the points. So it's mixing all the points, the trails, the copies that we have in one single curve. So we have this horrible design. How we can solve this? To solve this, we need to use this curve group ID. And the only thing we have to do to make this work, pay attention, is to store the index of the points. If you connect here index, it's not going to work, as you can see, because we need to get the index before all this process. So before the copies. So actually, we need to get the index here. I repeat, before the simulation node, and send this index here. How we do that? This is really easy. Let's create another store name attribute. We can call this, for example, index point. So we know that is the index of the point. And let's use index. So this is to get the index point. And now that we have this attribute created before all these copies, we can send this information here with another name attribute. By the way, I'm going to write here delete points. And here we are going to select index point. Remember, this information. And if we connect this here, look at this. Let's restart again. And now it's working perfectly, as you can see. Because this is saying, hey, what matters is the index of the first point. So these 3 or 4 or whatever you have, not the index of the copies. So this is maintaining, like, let me show you. I'm going to use index and I'm going to select attribute here. Sorry, I don't have to do it from here. I need to do it from here. So as you can see, if we get the index from here, we have 0, 1, and 2. And we cannot see the copies, but the copies of these points will be, for example, if this is 0, will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. So, thanks to sending this information here, we are saying maintain the group ID, the group of the original index. And that's how we create these trays. And now you can add as many trays as you want, just increasing this number. But let's give some mesh to these trays. So what we're going to do is to go here and use curve to mesh. Let's select cycle curve. Let's decrease this, something like that, for example. And now let's give a material. Set material, let's select the default material. And the view of the material, I'm going to hide everything else. And let's open here the shade editor. So here we can control the color of these trails, as you can see. However, what I want is to maintain the factor. So how I can make, for example, that the start is one color and the end is another color. For example, applying a gradient. So to do this, what we have to do is to get the factor of this curve. But the question is, where we get the factor? Here, before, after, where? So to get the factor, to make this trace have a different color, we need to get the factor after all the points are curved. So basically, between these two nodes, because after this is a mesh. So let's use a store name attribute. Let's call this factor, and let's get the factor of this curve with, let's use spline parameter and select factor. We are doing this because we are going to send this information. Remember, the factor is the information of the start and the end of any curve. So we're going to send this information to the shade editor. So to receive this information, we need this node attribute because we create an attribute, and now we need to write the same word, factor. And before connecting this here in color, actually, if we connect it, you can see that it's working because the start is white and the end is black for any trail. But now, if we want, we can do is to apply a color ramp so we can change the colors. For example, so this is the start, as you can see, and this is the end. Look at here. Actually, let's do something. Let's just select only one so we can see better. And let me increase the size of this just a little bit. So now we can see better. So this is the start and this is the end, as you can see. So for example, what I want is here blue and here black. And if you want to make a better transition, what you can do is to apply easy. So the black is more like this. Look before and after. Now, another thing you can do, let's select this view, the final view. I'm going to make the background dark. Let's make this emit light. So we're going to use emission. Let's go into here and let's increase this. And now, actually, it looks transparent, but it's not transparent because the background is dark. It's very important. Look at this. If you want to make the black transparent, then you can connect the color in alpha. So when it's black, will be transparent. Let's check it. And now you can see that where we have black, look before and after. So when we have black, it's transparent. If you want to see this, what you can do is to press N here and in options, select render method blended. And now it works perfectly. And now what we can do is to give some light. So let's increase this, and to see the glow, remember, we need to go to Compositor, activate these nodes, and add here a glare node. And you can use, by the way, also to see the glow, remember, we have to go here, and in Compositor, show always. So you can use bloom, or you can use this one. I'm going to set this one, and let's come back to the shade editor and increase this. And now let's decrease the background. And now we have this really cool effect, this trail. If we want to improve this trail, for example, what we can do is to make the end more narrow. So to do this, what we have to do is before converting this to a mesh, we need to use set curve radius, because we want to play with the radius of the curve. So we want to use the factor. Why the factor? Because the factor, remember, have the information from the start and the end. And we can use the default value that is 0 and 1. So if you connect this here, you can see that now the start have a value of a radius of 1 and the end a radius of 0. We want to control this because like this is really ugly. So what we can do is to use a math node to multiply this or divide it. So let's select multiply And if we multiply this by a number like this, we can control better this size, as you can see. And if you want to make the top, the star, like round, what we can do is to use a float curve here. Float curve, let's add it here. And with this, you can play, as you can see, so whatever I do here is going to apply in all the curve. So what I can do is to create some points here and try to do something like this. And in theory, it should work. Let me check. It's not working now. I don't remember how I did in the past, but with this you can control. I know what I did wrong. Basically what I have to do is to apply the float curve before the multiply. So if we move this after this, now it's working. Look at the difference. Now we have a better control, as you can see here. So this, as you can see, controls the shape of this. But if you apply this after that, then it's not working perfectly. This was my mistake, as you can see. Now, as a final tip before we finish, I want to tell you, if you want to make your curve better, to improve it and avoid these little segments where we have like straight lines, because remember that these are points. If we come back to this view and I preview from here, we can see that these are the points, right? So to avoid this, the only thing you have to do is add, for example, after this, let's move all this. We need to add set spline type, and here select this. And look at the after. Now it's really smooth. Look, before and after. Before, after. So now looks perfect, as you can see. And if you want more trails, the only thing we have to do, I'm going to write here, make curve smoother. So to add more trails, the only thing you have to do is to increase this number. For example, I want 3. And now we have 3 beautiful trails dancing. And remember, in any moment, you can change the position for whatever you want. Actually, you can control this with an empty if you want. Or you can mix an empty and this noise texture. Or you can do, for example, a particle system that projects particles. There are infinity possibilities. So I hope you learned something new. And if you like this video, please give a like, subscribe, and remember, you can donate this project and many more than 100 on my Patreon. And see you in the next tutorial.